Thank you, Eric, and the whole Alumni Career Services team for putting this together. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see so many people joining us, so a lot. And from around the world, I'm noticing too. I believe when I was looking at the registry prior to this, there was some alumni spread across the globe. So it's great to have you join us. I see several familiar faces out there: Michael Jarvis, Lily West, Rebecca Watson, to name a few. Just hold your rotten tomatoes until after the presentation, if you don't mind. But with that, let's just dive right in. So my colleagues will be speaking later on in the presentation, but in terms of myself, my role as president really consists of a few things. Along with the founders, I ensure that the vision and mission of Cav Angels is relevant and compelling. I help lead the board in strategic planning and serve as the liaison to the executive committee for not just the board, but the two advisory councils, which I'll speak to in a minute. I also help to ensure that we're operationally efficient, leveraging best practices from other groups and VC funds, around due diligence, new member onboarding. However, that being said, I have to give a ton of credit to Jim and Rich and Dick, the three co-founders. They've really done the heavy lifting and have positioned Cav Angels and myself for success in this role and then moving forward in the future. So there's not a whole lot of changes I need to make. I also help to raise Cav Angels' overall brand awareness, reaching out to prospective members, talking with startups seeking capital, looking at potential syndicate investors. So again, I work very closely with Jim and with Rich as co-chairs to make sure all of this happens. So next slide, please. Great, and then one more. Great. And so one of the things that we have done this year heading into 2021 is to really add to our already impressive board. And so we right now have 15 members out of a total of 17. You see here on the screen just a few of our select board members. Again, very notable in terms of professions. We have a very diverse group that reflects the professional, academic, and demographic diversity of UVA's undergrad and grad alumni base around the world. We really think that that's important and strive for that. And what's not on the screen, but kind of behind our formal board, is two advisory councils that we're in the process of launching. They are there to help complement the board's strategic guidance around operations, but they more importantly serve as due diligence subject matter experts and informal kind of boards beyond the boardroom for our portfolio company founders and us as well. So these two advisory councils, one is the Medical and Scientific Council, which will consist of noted academic researchers, physicians, and healthcare entrepreneurs. And again, all coming from alumni, UVA alumni. And then also we have the Founders Council, which will consist of serial and exited entrepreneurs across a variety of industries and some from Cav Angels portfolio companies that have exited. So those are in the early stages of development, but I'll be working closely with the chairs of those councils, again, to bring that added counsel and connections to Cav Angels. Let's see, next slide, please. So I want to just highlight our vision and our mission, and it's really simple and straightforward. From a vision standpoint, as you can see on the screen, we aspire to become one of the most active angel groups in the country, as well as one of the most esteemed alumni angel groups. When you look at the Princetons, the Harvards, you've got Duke, you've got Cornell, just to name a few, Stanford. These are all institutions that we compete with academically, and there's no reason why our group, Cav Angels, can't be operating and attracting the type of talent and investors that those alumni groups do. And they're often cited as kind of benchmark groups for alumni groups, angel groups. So that's our vision, kind of long term, and we think and we're confident that we can achieve that vision. So how do you get there? Well, one of the, our main mission is kind of twofold for Cav Angels, and while I don't know if it's necessarily unique to an academic or alumni angel group, I think we have several unique aspects of Cav Angels that do make us different from other groups. But our mission, as you see, is for Cav Angels, it's to elevate the entrepreneurial ecosystem for UVA alumni by inspiring, connecting, funding, and mentoring the extended UVA startup community. So again, the two components, investing and education. And at the end of the day, I think bringing together our alumni, just as UVA in its various ways brought us together when we were at school there. So we feel very good about where we're headed and very confident in being able to execute against our vision and mission. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide right here kind of highlights the various components of Cav Angels that I just spoke to a minute ago, and I'm not going to go through this entire slide word by word, but I did want to point out a few things. So if you look at our membership, we have several different tiers. So we facilitate solutions for full members, and we've got right now around 78, 80 full members that are international in scope. They're all accredited investors. And so the solutions there are certainly the educational piece, but more so presenting to them or delivering to them a curated set of opportunities. Each individual investor, and you'll hear this from my colleagues a little bit later in the presentation, but each individual investor will make his or her own decision on how to invest, when to invest, but Cav Angels serves as a little bit of a regular green light as to the interest in a potential opportunity. So we have our full members and we have our student members. Our student membership number is about 34, 35, and they're from all the different schools, Darden, Com, Class. We have Virginia Venture Fund, some alumni, or I'm sorry, from student groups. Again, just as our board reflects the diversity of our alumni base, our student membership reflects the diversity of the various schools and disciplines within UVA. Our student members really help us with diligence. I will say that maybe this is one of the more unique aspects of Cav Angels, is that I don't think Rich and Jim and myself and Dick can do what we do without the students. The students really, really help us to discern which opportunities make the most sense to put before our broader membership. And we also have an educational membership tier. And so we've got about 20 or so educational members. And these are individuals who really are leaning in, they're not student members, but these are alumni. And they're on the path to being an active investor and a full member. So they might not be accredited yet, but they really want to begin to learn about it. They may be accredited and they just want to learn a little bit more before they feel comfortable making an investment. And then we have our friends of Cav Angels, and they number, 60, 65. These are portfolio company founders. These are non-UVA alumni kind of fans. And so again, if you look at the different constituents that Cav Angels caters to, we have four: full members, student members, educational members, and friends of Cav Angels. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jim Chang, who's one of our co-chairs, and he's going to talk to us a little bit more about the history of Cav Angels and some of the aspects with our educational piece. So with that, Jim, take it away.
Clyde's up in Rockville. And if any of you've ever lived in Northern Virginia or DC, you know how bad the traffic is. So we would go there and have a breakfast and listen to pitches from companies. And then we'd raise our hands or thumbs up or thumbs down on the company and decide whether to invest them, or if we needed to do more due diligence or more investigation, or if we needed to wait some more for some more data from them. And those are great. Those were how angel investment was done back then, having meetings and breakfasts, dinners, lunches, and things like that. People driving in from all over, entrepreneurs coming in and making pitches also. And like I said, those are great. But after a while, if you've been in DC before, the traffic gets really bad. It's hard to find people to show up. And often people are delayed in traffic and things like that. Plus, you figure out a lot of your membership fees that go towards these events get spent on lunches and guests and dinners and drinks and things like that. But again, the camaraderie, the learning and everything, very, very valuable. Well, I did that for a while, and I went to Richmond after that to serve on the state government for a while. And after that, I decided to go back to Charlottesville, like I said earlier. And I bumped into one of my old friends in the angel world. You saw his picture, Dick Crawford. Dick had been running an angel group in Charlottesville, a local angel group that operated very similarly, a dinner club instead of breakfast. But he said there was something he'd always been working on. And I think Dick may be listening in. So he should be here listening in today. So I'm going to tell a story. I hope I tell it right. But for years, he said there's got to be a better way to do this. In fact, he'd been working on doing remote angel groups for quite some time, but the technology just wasn't there. So fast forward now, it's 2014, 2015. And groups like AngelList and other online groups were popping up online, doing investment. But, I tried that and it was very, very impersonal. It was not about people. It was just about getting money out there and numbers and things like that. So turns out, like I said, Dick had been thinking about this for a while. And he said, time to disband this local angel group. There still is one here in Charlottesville, but he wanted to do something for the UVA community, the UVA alumni, and what we say, it's alumni investing in alumni. And so we got a few people together and started Cav Angels. Now, like Paul mentioned, we have a lot of missions, but one of the biggest one is education. It's like what's on this on the screen right now. There's a lot of folks here like me, semi-retired or busy otherwise, and we want to find out how to get involved in deals, how to help university, how to give back to UVA, right? And we have ways to do that when funds exit or companies exit and things like that. We want to get involved in all the great things that are coming out of our labs. All the great entrepreneurs that coming out of our research of all the great intellectual property that comes out of UVA, plus all the great students that have these fantastic new ideas that old guys like me, we're just not too good at, right? But we have the funding, and UVA has such a great base of smart people and a very wealthy alumni base that could really add a lot of great funding and knowledge to these new companies. So turns out that we found out that even though we have some great alumni, Wall Street, big industry, Fortune 500 companies, they all know those tools of finance. But it turns out investing in new startups, very, very different than investing in large companies. So we have this great alumni group, guys like Rich, and many of you in the audience that know how to analyze those big companies, public companies maybe. But what do you need to do to invest in a startup with no history, with just an idea, with a team, with a concept, with a little bit of intellectual property? How do we do that? Well, that's what we do, because a well-educated alumni base can really help the startups that we're going to put out of UVA. So turns out that Dick's idea of going online, like I said, Angel Group has already done it, AngelList has already done it, Well, we do everything from, and you can go to the next slide. We can do everything from deal intake to screening to watching pitches. We do due diligence online. We have Q&A with founders and entrepreneurs and pitches online. And unlike AngelList, we're all volunteers, students, alumni, a couple paid interns. We're all here for one purpose, and that is to invest in UVA-based companies. And so we all have a passion for helping the UVA startup ecosystem. And we value the human interaction and human touch to leverage all this expertise we have in our far-flung community. Everything's recorded, so you can come back and look and see if there's a pitch you missed or a Q&A session you missed. You can always pick it up online. Now, I'm going to switch over to something else, and that is just what is an angel? How do you qualify? And I got to mention that, as you may imagine, angel investment is quite risky. You know, we hear of all these startup unicorns and companies that exit for billions of dollars, but the reality is very few of them really do that well. And just the nature of startups, quite risky, more fail than succeed. And it's not just because of bad planning or bad ideas. Sometimes people fail for all sorts of reasons. Back in 2008, right, we had a big recession, and just now it's COVID. So it's so much better to invest when you understand the risks involved. We have to take a portfolio approach. And investing through an angel group has been proven to be much better than investing as an individual or investing with an angel group that is not well organized. We have studies that show that investing with a well-organized, due diligence angel groups can result in an IRR of like 27%, but only if you hold a large enough diversified portfolio of startups. And we can talk more about that later. Plus, as an angel group, we try to add value to every company in our portfolio. We try to be smart money. We try to be mentors. We try to help them out. One last thing I wanted to mention was, you know, who's qualified to be an angel investor? Well, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission has established a bright line rule on who can and cannot invest as an angel investor. You have to have 2 years salary of $200,000 as an individual or $300,000 as a couple, or a net worth of $1 million, excluding your primary residence. And to be a CAV angel member, you have to have some sort of affiliation with UVA, and we can talk about that in a little bit. And there are other exceptions too, but that's what we rely on. And of course, if you don't meet those qualifications, like Paul said, we also have educational and student members too. All right, it's probably a good time for me to switch over to Rich, who will tell you a lot more about what we do and who we work with across town. Next slide.
Great. Next slide, please, Eric. Thank you. I have 3 things I'd like to cover. Actually, a fourth thing. Fourth thing I'm going to do is answer hopefully many of your questions at the end. I'm the numbers guy, so you're going to get a lot of numbers. I also am a Reformed Northeasterner. Hopefully you can't tell by my accent. That's what going to school in UVA for a couple of years does to you. But I do talk pretty quickly. But I want to start with our mission. And I want to start with a story, because I was probably like many of you on this call. I am an investor, a lifelong investor. I opened my first brokerage account while I was in high school, and I've invested all my career. But you know, I was a finance guy, 17 years at KPMG, public accounting, then came over to work for Honeywell and a couple other companies, all on the finance side. I did get the great opportunity of working in Honeywell's pension plan group. So I actually, for 4 years, got paid to do my hobby. And I basically invested in public equities and oversaw managers that invested public equities. We, as a group, oversaw over $25 billion of investments. But I went back and I did my finance thing at a couple of different companies. et cetera, et cetera. When I joined this group, I had just left the corporate world. I actually ended up buying Dick Crawford's house in Charlottesville. At the time, one of the original founders of the group had left the group, and I had a skill set that was much needed. I also, at the time, had made one angel investment. I wrote way too big a check, and I've written subsequent checks. The good news, lucky me, that company is still around and hopefully will monetize someday in the future. But I didn't know much other than public company stuff. And frankly, with my public company background, I would invest in none of the deals that we invest in today, because I'm applying certain criteria from the public company, public markets into startups, and it just doesn't work. Startups are much more about people, about teams, about the ability to pivot, as Paul successfully did early on this pitch. I learned every deal that we've done for Cav Angel since I joined 4.5 years ago, I've invested in. And that talks to the diversity. It talks to a lot of things that you need to look at that are different in this world than the other worlds. And then, earlier this year, when the opportunity came up to lead, I felt qualified to do that because I learned from Jim, I learned from Dick Crawford, and I learned from the people in the ecosystem, every day. I learned from the kids, the students that we bring in, that we work with all the time. So our mission is an educational mission, and that's unique in that we can actually have people join and they're writing a check to a 501c3 trust, acknowledged by the IRS, which means I'm not giving any tax advice, but it basically means it's a charitable contribution. So that's a neat thing. And when I did join, we were looked at, we kind of met the old fashioned way. We met once a week for lunch at the Abbott Center on Darden's grounds. And for whatever reason, I guess because, many of the founders were Darden folks, we were meeting at Darden. We were always thought of as a kind of a Darden group. Now I'm a McIntyre guy, and right away I said, well, we got a whole bunch of people out there that might be interested in this. Many of you may know that Serena Williams' husband, the founder of Reddit, is actually a McIntyre person. And he came back to Darden and he said he didn't feel supported as an entrepreneur. And I said, shame on us. So the bottom line here is what we've really focused on is to get throughout grounds to really become a pan-university thing, not just a Darden niche type thing. And I think we've been pretty successful. Here you see on the chart here, the various groups that are involved. And we have students from each of these places involved, all the schools. We have alliances with Darden. I'll talk about a couple of these. The Charlottesville BioHub is Charlottesville oriented. And being involved with Charlottesville BioHub, and Nikki Hastings, who is one of our new board members, she's on our weekly meetings, and through our affiliation, we get first look at things coming through the Charlottesville BioHub, many of which are UVA related, but many aren't either. And so we've done a lot of things to basically get alliances to show to people that we're all about our mission of education. We now have the new dean at McIntyre on our board and as a member before she was asked to join our board. So there's a lot of good stuff that's going on there. What I want to talk about is one or two quick collaborations we've done, and one that's near and dear to my heart, because frankly, I'm in it to hopefully invest in things that will then give me ability to give more back to UVA than I give currently. I think there was a little bit of a parochial view early on from the university, frankly, that if you wrote a check to an investment, you were not going to get a check to UVA. But I think, and that was the old days, okay? Now I think people think more broadly about this, and basically, a successful check to Cav Angel's investment would mean the ability to give more money back to UVA. And I think it's just a more full view of alumni and what they can do and what they want to do. But that collaboration is, we call it the Cav Mayo cohort. So earlier this year, we took two of our companies that we wanted to learn more about, that we wanted to put into due diligence into the Cav Mayo cohort, which means it was then led by another one of our new board members, Aaron Fernstrom. We're going to stay on that chart, please. We're not going to go forward yet. So Aaron Fernstrom, who is the head of the Mayo Center at Darden and an experienced venture capital guy, basically took students which ranged from executive MBAs up in the Northern Virginia grounds, all the way to a first-year college student who wanted to get involved in this space. And so they divided, we had 15 people in total. You can see them on our website, a very diverse group in many, many different ways. I would just say the end result of that is we have 2 companies that are moving forward with getting some funding from Cav Angels, and they're moving forward. Well, I guess one we're still looking at because there's a little bit of a difference opinion between what we think the value should be and what they think it should be, but it's all good. I think we'll get through that, we'll negotiate it, and they will be a deal that people on this call can invest in if you want to join with us. So, but the bottom line here is, it's one thing to make some money. It's another thing to give money away. But I felt almost actually more importantly, when I had a Darden first year person who had actually done 4 years at Reddit and then worked in other startups, basically working side by side with a first year college young lady who wants to get into venture, and that they teamed up as part of that team. It was an experiential learning experience. And to me, that's almost, that's a better way of giving back than just giving dollars. You're giving to students what they're here to get from UVA. And yeah, they didn't get credit for it, but I'll tell you, they value it just as much as a credit that they would have earned. The other thing I'll just mention very quickly before I move on is I'll tease you a little bit here. Paul and I had a meeting yesterday with the Deputy Athletics Director at UVA. Now, everybody knows Carla Williams. Everybody knows the master plan, right? It's so that we can be competitive with Clemson and Duke and having facilities that attract people to UVA, student athletes. The secret here is that while that's the master plan and certainly something that's really, really important, the secret mission that Carla has is to have student athletes graduating with a level of financial sophistication that you typically don't find in a student athlete, to prepare them for whatever they do after they play sports and wear our colors. So the teaser here is that I am highly confident we'll be working closely with the athletic director's office in bringing in a collaboration with the athletics department and having Cav Angels doing things as simple as mentoring, presenting, bringing our programs and the programs of the Angel Capital Association into the athletic portal. That's what they call it. And I think that will be, again, a real big success. You will see more and more of these things as we progress. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So I'm the deal guy. I know all our investors. I talk to them. I know what they like. We have investors that like to look at each deal in detail, that read the reports. We started having 26-page reports. We don't do that many pages anymore. But there are people that want to look at each of those deals and then decide whether they want to invest or not. There's other people that have day jobs and just want to know, hey, what do you think about this? And I feel very strongly, I've invested in each of these deals. So I guess I eat the meals that we cook, so to say, and can talk to people about these deals. They all are aware, and Jim referenced these are high risk. If you're a baseball fan, you've heard the Mendoza line, and you can be a really good baseball player if you only hit 3 out of 10 times. Okay, it's probably not much different actually. What you look for, and Jim talked about diversification of the portfolio, is you really want to be able to tolerate the fact that probably half of your deals may go to zero. Okay, and you make your money on the 1 or 2 deals out of 10 that return anywhere from 10+ times or 5+ times, and a couple where you make one or twice your money. So that's how you get the blend to get to a 27%. So you need to understand that. It's not for people who need these money to put food on the table. It's not for people that say, oh, I got a safe and comfortable retirement. It's for people who can tolerate the risk and go after the potential rewards of good due diligence deals. So what I would tell you here on this page, let's not go to the next one yet, but we differentiate between CavAngel portfolio companies. That's where we have enough investors. We set up a separate LLC to house the investors making the investment. And then that LLC lives while the investment is still living. We then have, don't go to the next page, but we will show you the other investments, which are direct investments, which is between CavAngel investors and the companies. So there is not a separate LLC. Oftentimes these are younger, less mature, maybe a little too risky for even our member investors, but investments have been made to nurture them along, and maybe in the next phase of funding, you always got to be ready to write another check and another check. That's how this works, potentially. So you phase in, and so those other companies are ones that will probably be coming up for further investments. Each of these companies, it's like another child for me. They all have a story. One of the things we talked about with Eric is that we probably could do a whole nother version getting into some of these, but I just want to give you a little bit of an idea and anticipation of what you may ask. So there's 22 companies on the next two slides. 6 are woman-owned, funded, or with CEOs. We actually had 5 of our 14 deals last year that were women-owned, women-run, women CEO companies. We have 1 minority-owned or African-American founded company. It's on the next page. And there's another one with the same founders coming on the pike. I don't want you to move yet, but we'll talk about that when we get it. Sorry, I keep teasing the move. Last year, we did 14 deals. 11 of them were first-time deals. 3 were follow-on deals. One of those deals we actually funded early in the year, and then we followed on at the end of the year. That's for a company called Dive. It's on this page that actually has an unmanned underwater vehicle. So it's a mini sub of sorts that doesn't need an accompanying ship. You pretty much tip it off a dock, and it can go do all sorts of neat things like check into wind farms. It could also make sure that the people offshore monitoring us are the right people, or that we know who's out there offshore monitoring us. So there, as you might expect, there's some Department of Defense interest in that company. All of our companies, all 22, are still going. We've had no write-offs yet. Many have had follow-on financings. Many have pivoted. The whole idea is to keep these getting higher and higher valuations as they go on until you get to a monetization. I will talk to the monetization when I get to the next page. We've had 1 monetization, which will give you an idea of what that all means. But let me just quickly hit on here. Mycronic, the first top left here, is a woman-owned company. It's actually an opportunity zone company in Southwestern Virginia. It's got connections with UVA Wise, and they have the Tornadic one-pass technology, which takes dirty water and converts it into potable water. So, or potable water, whatever it should be. But we invested in that. That attracted a Virginia state credit, which means you can actually get money back against your Virginia taxes on some of these things. Pretty neat. We have high expectations. My highest expectation is to get the water boys involved with this. Hasn't happened yet, but it will happen in the future. Something like this is very, very attractive. You also hear of ESG investing. This would be an ESG investment, right? It's about clean water. Hard to argue against that. Springbok Analytics, if we go to the far right, and I'm jumping over a whole bunch of companies maybe we'll talk about more in the Q&A. Springbok Analytics, which we funded at the end of the year, is our largest individual seed stage investment. $465,000 we deployed into Springbok Analytics. It's an AI-powered solution. It studies the musculature of an athlete or of an individual or of a person in our reserves, person who's serving our country in the armed forces. And it basically gets personalized medicine as to how you can improve your ability to deploy or to perform your sport, et cetera, et cetera. Before this year, our average investment was about probably 250,000. This shows you how far we came. Last year, we did 14 deals. We deployed over almost $3.5 million. And in the $3.5 million, that was more than 2x what we had deployed in the prior 3 years. So it tells you the growth. You know, we've doubled our investing members last year. What that means, we can write bigger checks. That means we move up the capital stack and we can lead deals, which we wouldn't have dreamt to do a year ago, but we can lead deals now. So the other one I'll highlight on here, I'll highlight two on here. Babylon Microfarms is a vertical farming, hydroponic vertical farming company. It will soon be the biggest next first initial seed stage, no pun intended here, seed stage company and investment. And this one is currently sitting at $560,000 that's being invested. It is still open. If anybody wants to get into a hydroponic investment, if you want to join us, I will give you the due diligence materials. And if you want to invest in this one, I still think there's time to get in, although it would be very tight. They have announced they're leaving Charlottesville on Harris Street and moving to Richmond. I think the city of Richmond attracted them to Scott's Addition through some incentives, which is really important. The last one I'll mention is Mito. This is one near and dear to my heart. And I am, full disclosure, I'm the only UVA connection here. This came out of Oklahoma State University. I stumbled over this woman-led company. It's actually a husband and wife team, but I know who wears the pants in this family, and it's Haley Keith. And this is one that really resonated because it echoed exactly what I was doing in the public company world. It's a specialty material that when you add it to composites or polymers or plastics, gives it the strength of steel, okay? There have been hundreds of millions of dollars thrown into this by places as far and wide as MIT and Harvard without coming up with a solution like this. So it's a long shot, but so far this deal works, so far. We've connected them through all our connections at UVA with upwards of 5 global chemical companies, many of whom have samples and are looking at this. And if you drive around the country, I guarantee you know of the company called Wabash. It's one of the biggest tractor trailer companies out there, hauling freight around the country. And Wabash has a development agreement with Mito to take their steel and wood bases of their trailers and convert it into something much lighter that's plastic. So believe it or not, a chemical company can be an ESG investment. And so far, Mito is coming through. We invested in this deal with a valuation of $3.5 million, part of $1 million that was put into it. And if you want to know the exact details, I can get into this and later. But I have someone who used to work with me at Albemarle Corporation who has signed on for a year now, getting equity as a consultant. He's the quote unquote adult in the room, the experienced industry hand. His name's Brian Carter. And I said, Brian, if this continues to prove out the way it is, what do you think this company is worth? And his answer to me, and I value this guy, he knows what he's doing, is somewhere between $300 and $400 million. So you can do the multiple on that from 3.5 pre-money, which means 4.5 after money, to that type of number. So this is one of the ones you want to hit. What are the odds of that? Still probably pretty long. Let's be honest here, okay? They're literally coming out of the lab at Oklahoma State University. But that's the potential. That's what angel investing is about. Let's go forward to the next slide. I'm talking too much. There we go. Okay, I'm going to very, very quickly tell you on here. So these are the direct investment companies. And let's go to Phytonex. Phytonex monetized. So a small group of us invested in Phytonex. Phytonex is into fluorescent labels for flow cytometry. That sounded like a good investment, right? Did we know what we're investing in? No, not really. What we're really investing in is the founder who came into us, who's a PhD out of UVA, Mike Stadniski. And Mike Stadniski came to us. He joined as a member to invest money. He had just come out of a monetization, selling his company to Becton Dickinson in the medical space. And he found this company, believe it or not, it was at Duke University. And he basically decided that they hired him to take this company and make it into something. It was just a floundering technology. And within 14 months, he sold it to Thermo Fisher. So I can't give all the details, but we basically doubled our money in 14 months and have the opportunity to make 2.5 times more of that through earnouts going into the future. I guess I'm going to leave it at that. I'll give you an idea of what we go into, and what I'm going to finalize with now is kind of some of the questions you might have. So we're a not-for-profit. I mentioned that. In order to join as an accredited investor, it's a $2,000 initiation fee, and it's $1,000 per year to see the deal flow that we give. I would say Jim gave through the Paul gave the stats on the number of people. What I would tell you is, our average check used to be $250. It's now like $400 as a group. We form special purpose entities or LLCs for most of our investments, those group investments. And I know we'll get a question on global. So, and this is the way I would answer it. Mick and Varun in London, thanks for joining today. Meg Horvath, who runs the London alumni group, is basically, has been in on one of our due diligence meetings. I'll put it that, and we're trying to get her to join as a member. Adriano in Sao Paulo, Stefan in Berlin, Julie in Canada, Barris in Istanbul, Serena in Amsterdam, Stephanie in Portugal, and Subu in Vienna. I cheated there because that's Portugal, Virginia, and Vienna, Virginia. But anyway, you get my drift. We want to be, we want to be global. We should be global, and we want to be diverse, reflecting the people at UVA now and the graduates that we have. I'm going to stop there, and I guess we'll open up to Q&A.
Hey, Rich.
Yes.
Can I add a couple things here?
You can, Jim, please.
I was watching some of the chats. Just a couple things that tell you about our structure and everything like that. We are an opt-in fund. So let's say you join as an investing member. You don't have to invest in every deal or any deal. We'd like you to do that, but it's up to you. And what would be the average investment? The low would be like 10,000, 5,000.
It's 10 and 25 is kind of our sweet spot. We charge no fees except for an upfront admin fee, which makes sure that LLC exists. And depending on the level of investment, it could be as much as 10% fee one time upfront, or it could be as low as 2.5% fee, depending on the amount of the investment. We have a sliding scale. Thank you, Jim.
And on the other side, if you are a company looking for investment, we use this angel platform on the web. It's called Gust. It's sort of clunky, but it's what everybody uses. You can put in pretty much almost all of your due diligence materials on there, including one pager and data like that. I'm looking through the Q&A, and Rich would love to answer your question about safes.
I just saw that one, Jim. So, well, believe it or not, our monetization was with a safe. And thank God the people who said it's too good investment to make to worry about the instrument we were investing in. But safes by definition, and here's our advice. We're an equal opportunity advice for entrepreneurs. They're probably the most friendly instruments to an entrepreneur, not exactly friendly to investors, is the perception. But if you're investing in a West Coast deal, oftentimes you may encounter them. We prefer not. We prefer convertible debt. We preferred priced equity, but we have safes. And probably the highest profile deal in our pipeline now is another safe deal. Mike Stadniski, the founder of Phytonex, is actually the chairman of this. So I know we're not going to avoid it. He's going to say, take it or leave it. And I think we'll probably take it given his history with us so far. So I hope that helps.
We had another really great series of questions on social entrepreneurship. And we're really proud to say that Christine Mahoney, who's the head of social entrepreneurship at UVA, is on our board. And we do have considerations for that. We've, like Rich said, some of our investments, I think, do apply to or are relevant to the ESG space. And we do look for that. Although we're primarily in here for return, the triple bottom line is very appealing to a lot of our investors. By the way, did we talk much? There's a question here on our screening and vetting process. So once you apply through GUST or some other way, we will take it. We'll take that information. We'll take it to a screening committee or executive committee, and we'll work together. We'll look at it. We may have a call or a presentation by the entrepreneurs online, and if it passes that committee, we'll take it to our larger committee, which meets every Tuesday, and take it through vetting there. We'll set up a vetting team. And that vetting team could consist of subject matter experts from the university, from our membership, or from students and professors and folks like that. Once that vetting team gets through, we put together a due diligence report, and that report goes out to membership. You raise your hand, say I'll invest, or hey, I need more information, or not for me. And then we gather the money together. Then Rich puts together the LLC if it's something that makes it to our sweet spot.
And Jim, let me just, I may regret saying this, but we do everything in the sunshine, okay? So believe it or not, so the executive committee, a small group of us meet on Mondays, but on Tuesday, that meeting of the working group, as we call it, is open to anybody who wants to just see what we do and how we do it. Anybody who may want to join and see how that works. We have investing members that have never been on that meeting. And then we have educational members that are there every week. We have members that are not just like a CFO, C-suite person like myself in finance, but we have we have CEOs in our membership. We have people who are on boards of global companies. That's how we got the connections for Mito. But you are invited if you want to see how we do things. It kind of harkens back to when I was in accounting and I went to the FASB to see how they would declare standards. And all I can guarantee you is that our meetings are much more exciting than that. We had 30 people on that meeting every week, or this past week, we went through 18 deals, including 3 that just came through GUST, including 2 that we just kind of closed, and everything in between. So you're welcome if you want to see how we do things. It's an educational experience in and of itself. It's an hour basically on Tuesdays. So let us know about that. Any inquiries for entrepreneurs or for membership can come through our cavangels.com. So there's a place where you can do that, or contact us through the Alumni Association or our emails. You can track us down. We're easy enough to track down, but the website, you can get to us through that.
This question is for any of y'all, so kind of 2 areas in one. What's kind of a number of companies that y'all look at each year? And then if you could also speak to what kind of connection to UVA does that company need to have?
I'm happy to do that. I was a little concerned this past year because you hear numbers like, well, for every 100 that come through, you should only invest in a couple, okay? And that's probably the way venture capitalists go. That's probably a good ratio for them. We're investing in more than that, but we do get, if you include people that just come over the transom that don't have a UVA connection, so I see that's a question also. I think we probably get over the course of a year, 150 to 200 plus inquiries. We screen a lot of them out pretty quickly. And then, well, you heard we did 14 deals last year. I worried that we were doing too many, but frankly, the quality of the deals we're seeing and the connections they have to the university in terms of being referred to us, or we know them as they've proceeded through various lower levels of competitions and other things at UVA. I'm convinced the quality of the deals we've done, despite the number going up, is better than it's ever been in terms of opportunities. So in terms of UVA connection, it can be as remote as someone who has a child who's a student who's paid tuition at one time. Most are alums of some sort or somehow connected into UVA ecosystem. We do actually have the ability, if you're a non-UVA connected person, to join. So we ask you to become a friend of CAV, and Eric likes this definition. All you got to do is donate a certain amount to the UVA Alumni Association, and that will qualify you that way. He didn't pay me to say that either. That's just the way we do it. And we actually do have, just to show the ultimate in diversity in our group, we actually have a board member that's a double Dookie. So, he trailed his spouse, who's now like the head of urology at UVA Hospital, Bill Porter. He's out of Sequoia, which is a West Coast venture firm, very, very well known. But for people who show they want to contribute to the ecosystem, we can make accommodations.
So you were speaking and you said you cheated a little bit with where people were from.
Yeah.
Are all investments or companies that y'all look at here in the US or some international or abroad?
We haven't done any international deals, but we're not precluded from doing that. We have members, I can't say we have them in all 50 states, which I know, the admissions group loves to say about our students, but we do have a member in Hawaii, and we do have, we have a number of targets, let's say, overseas in terms of investing members. We have not invested in an overseas deal yet, but I don't know why we couldn't if we wanted to.
And with the diversity of companies, you also spoke to the kind of background and leadership. I think it was 6 or 7 women-owned company, one of them.
Minority owned. So
minority owned as well.
What's really interesting, so if you look on, you don't have to go back to the chart, but on the second chart, you see a company called Traffic, spelled incorrectly, Traffk. Traffic is actually a former board member of ours who's now on the advisory council because we thought it'd be better for him to be there. Brian Sims, who's a Duke undergrad and a Darden grad, and Paul Ford, who I don't care where he went to school because Paul Ford is like a genius as it relates to anything to do with big data. And anyway, Brian brought us to Paul, or Paul came to us, Brian met him, and now Brian left working for a big bank and now is working with Paul on his family office, which is a grab bag of technology. Traffic has not monetized yet, and there's only a small group of Cav Angels in it because when we got involved with this deal, they weren't going to make certain basic warranties and reps that we thought necessary to make to bring it to our membership. I mean, the last thing we wanted was for our members to say, you didn't find out X, Y, and Z, which is like the ABCs of due diligence. So, and I know he's on the call, I strong-armed my youngest brother, who was a Darden grad, and I kept money in that deal because we believed in the folks. They haven't monetized yet. I see somebody mention SPACs on the call, but what they've raised in total, $7 million of capital at Traffic, and they are in current discussions with SPACs, which would indicate their overall valuation is at least 10 times what we invested at. Brian Sims promised me I'd have money in hand to invest in the next thing, which is Orchestra RX, which is in our pipeline. It's Paul Ford's technology. Brian Sims is kind of the business development guy, and they're going after the PBM. PBM stands for 2 things. It stands for pharmacy benefit management. Everybody knows who's got a script has heard of that. It also stands for, as they say, perfect business model, which means there's so much opacity to that business model. They make money no matter what. And Orchestra RX is going after getting a fair share of that money for people who write the scripts. So, and they will get paid based on savings. So anyway, this is the next hot thing coming. Again, something, and this one is, it's located in an opportunity zone in Kentucky, believe it or not. It's basically Paul and Brian. So we have assembled a equally diverse team to do due diligence. And what I can do, if anyone's interested, is share the Zoom video of that due diligence that happened actually earlier this week. It happened a week ago, earlier on Monday this week. It went an hour and a half, and you'll get a feel for how those type sessions go. And I think it's Cav Angels at its best, this thing. And I think it will lead to probably an investment down the road. I can't judge, right? I only know what people write checks for, and they have those decisions. I can't influence that. Long answer to your question. Sorry, Eric.
No, all is good. Thanks, Rich. Jim, Paul, Rich, thank you.